Okay, everybody, welcome. We are re-recording an interview we tried last night, but it didn't work out for me at 3 a.m. in the morning. I had no tech help, but now Mark Lubbers, your Mark Lubbers on Twitter, has come to our rescue and is recording and hopefully streaming eventually our Brazilian online protest. We have with us today, I'm Alex Hill, from FreeAssange New Zealand, Candles4Assange as well. We did our New Zealand protest yesterday, and I then came back and talked to Bruno Vital, who is a school teacher who has been really highly active in the Lula campaign in Brazil, and he's passionate about his topic, and it was really wonderful to talk. So I'm hoping we can recreate an amazing conversation last night. And also we have Sandra Kawa, who I don't think is going to come on the video, but unless it pops up later, but you'll hear her voice. I think you could say hello, you guys. I'll just make sure that we can hear you both. So Bruno, hello. Vital, welcome. Nice to see you again. And Sandra, can we hear you?
Oi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Okay, that's great. We've got you both on.
We can hear and see.
Lovely. Okay. So right now we are coming through a set of rolling protests around the world. They might have just about finished. I believe it was about 34 cities, because Poland and Rome joined and Sydney joined last minute, so it could be even more. It covered across 15 countries in the end, and 5 continents, because here we are with Natal in Brazil. Now, what we were talking about yesterday, Bruno, I want to ask you, would you like to read out your statement that you gave to us first, or would you like to start with the situation in Brazil and what you were telling me about your president, who doesn't seem to care about the COVID and the problems that you're having there with getting vaccines? Yeah, we had a long discussion on that. So maybe, how would you like to start?
I think we have to contextualize the things, because I'm going to read the text, but for people to understand the text, they need to understand what is going on in Brazil. So first of all, I don't know if here is good evening, but there, I don't know, it's maybe good morning or...
Good morning for me.
Yes, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everybody that is watching. We are in Brazil, me and Sandra, and we live in Natal. Sandra lives in Natal, and I live close to Natal in another town in the same state. The state is called Rio Grande do Norte, here in Brazil. So in Brazil, every day dies here around 5,000 people because of the pandemic and coronavirus, because we have a very irresponsible president in Brazil, a genocide. We said this earlier. And why do we say this? Because he always stimulates people to go to streets, not to use masks, to use unrecommended medicine like chloroquine. He says he's a Brazilian Trump, for you to understand, because maybe many people knows Trump, so he's a Brazilian Trump. And
you were saying that he believes the vaccine will turn people into crocodiles. That's pretty extreme.
Yeah,
but we're all having a very different experience in different countries with COVID. I think everyone is having such a different experience. It's causing a lot of cognitive dissonance. So it's terrible to hear that you're experiencing such huge amounts of death there. I'm really sorry. And I feel like I'm rubbing it in people's noses. Being in New Zealand yesterday, we were at a festival showing our billboard here behind me. There was probably 20,000 people, not a single mask. And I'm really sorry that we're so free and, well, you know, a little bit authoritarian government, but we are, for all intents and purposes, free. And you guys are stuck indoors when I think you should be getting sunlight. I understand.
We have people not following the medical orientation, but the problem here is that the president He just doesn't care about people dying all the time, because I said before, 5,000 people in 24 hours. We see this daily. So this is the problem, and the president just says to people to go to the streets to work. You need to work. There's no bill, no significant bill for people to stay at home. So this is the big problem we have. And I insist on this issue because this is all related to what we're doing today here. Because his name is Bolsonaro, our president. The guy there is Bolsonaro. He won the election based on fake news, like Trump, very similar to Trump. And this comes in a context in which Brazil lost many things. We lost jobs, many jobs in Brazil. We had a crisis, an economic crisis, and a social crisis that is intensified by the president and by the pandemic, because they criminalized he and his friends. They criminalized Lula. Before, Lula was one of our latest presidents in Brazil, and he was president twice here. And then Lula elected a woman, the first woman president in Brazil, Dilma Rousseff. She was impeached in a process that was not fair because she did not commit crimes. So she was impeached without crime. And then we had many strange things happening in our country. There was an operation called Car Wash, and this operation was led by a judge that became a celebrity in Brazil. His name is Sérgio Moro. And Sérgio Moro was a kind of a star, but he was trying to judge and put Lula in prison. This was his goal since the beginning of the operation. And he did it. He could put Lula there for 580 days. 580 days. And we had to make this big campaign, the national campaign for Lula Livre, as we call it, Free Lula. It means Free Lula. So we had to do this to make sure that we could come across the situation, the situation here in Brazil. So we are in this. This is not a problem that is solved, but we are trying to solve this problem. But Assange has something to do with this history, because Assange, the WikiLeaks, the site made the information available that there was an intervention of the United States in Brazil, because we have a great oil reserve, a recent oil reserve, one of the biggest in the world, called Pré-Sal. It's like pre-salt, the word for this. And the United States, they wanted to get this oil, to have control of this oil. So they started to move, to make something to access the power in Brazil and to have the condition to explore these reserves. So
and yesterday you were saying he's an indigenous person that everyone really highly respects. It sounds like, unlike America and most of the Five Eyes countries, we have, left and right, blue and red, green, all sorts of parties, but all of them are 100% corrupt. Whereas it sounds like, we know that Trump and Biden are pretty much the same deal. But it sounds at least that in Brazil, you've got some hope for the future because you've got a lot of support behind it. Someone who's really standing up for the people, which I really, really appreciate. And I think we're having that trouble in every country, and you at least have a party. And you were saying potentially Lula is going to come back and fight again for president?
Yes, yes. It's interesting, this information, because I said it yesterday, but did not say this today. Lula was one of our poorest child in Brazil. He came from a very poor family, and he became president, the only president that has come from very poor extract of the society, of our society. So, and he was a worker in later he was a worker, and then he became the first president coming from the working class. So this is his, and also he is very popular. He was very approved. 80%, more than 80% of our population, when he left the government, approved his
That's
government, because he
incredible.
could, yes, he could make, uh, he took Brazil from the world hungry map. There is a map. I don't know if you have access to this information or if you deal with this data, but the UNO has a map that is called the hunger map, something like this. And Brazil wasn't in this map. But before Lula's government, Brazil was out of this map. And we had at the time people working, people thriving in many ways, studying, because he himself never studied in a university, but he built 18 universities in his government. So we had many transformations in Brazil because of his government, and he discovered this reserve, this oil reserve called pre-salt. Let's translate it like pre-salt. And the United States, we had this process of development, and at the same time, the United States wanted to access and to have power, have control over our reserve. This is something that the WikiLeaks told us, because a senator in Brazil was negotiating with these great companies of oil, the American companies, and then when Dilma was impeached, he became the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the government that came after Dilma's government. So this was an information that we had because of WikiLeaks. So it means we knew this because of Assange. Assange was the reason why we knew this information. And it is precious for us because we could see what was going on. It helped us to see what was going on in a global context and also in Brazilian context. So and after that, we had the 2018 election in Brazil, the last election that we had, and Lula wanted to run for president again, but he was not allowed. Our court forbid him to run as for president. He had the right to run, but he was not allowed to run. And then our genocide won the election in a very strange way with fake news and this kind of thing. And we have this situation now, and we live in the worst government of our history. Many people, even the ones that voted to him, they recognize nowadays that he is one of our worst presidents.
And you were saying about you were saying about that he wrote an article to support, and that was, he wrote an article to support Julian in The Guardian, and I remember reading that. It was a really excellent, like the first time a world leader had spoken up about the case. But also last night, I want you to recap, because you were talking about Bolsonaro and his Nazi ties. And I was saying how it's quite clear that America is based on quite old Nazi ties. We've got the NSA, the NASA, all sorts of heads of CIA, mind control, experiments on humans, all coming from the Nazi scientists after the war. And we know a lot about this history of the world wars that is not quite what the public know about on the whole. So I would love you to recap on those, and also Glenn Greenwald's role as well.
Sandra, do you want to talk? Because I'm talking a
lot. I mean, Sandra's muted at the moment. You go for it, and then we'll come back and talk to Sandra. I would love you to go through what you were saying last night about the Nazi ties to Bolsonaro, but also that Glenn Greenwald stepped up as well for him. And, you know, we were talking about that last night in detail. Yeah.
Okay, so we had this movement. We started this movement when he was in prison, and we started to make this national campaign. And something that was very important for us here, it was last year. I think it was last year that we had the information. We had a journalist like Assange in Brazil, Glenn Greenwald. He leaked the information that they got from the telegrams of the judge, Sérgio Moro, and the prosecutors, the people who were working in that operation, I said before, car wash. And then we had the truth for the nation, thanks to a journalist. Again, because we had this work done by Assange before, and then we had this work done by Glenn Greenwald. Glenn in the Intercept, I think everybody knows, or many people knows the Intercept because it's a famous paper, and so. So he made this a kind of a sequence of publications that we call Vaza Jato. In Brazil, that's like car wash leak. He started to reveal all the conversations that the judge had, and the judge was combining all the time with the accusators to put Lula in prison. That is mainly what was going on. And we discovered this, and that made all the difference in the process, because nowadays we can, Lula got some of his rights back. This made Lula able to be maybe our next president, because he couldn't do before. He had lost all his rights, and now he has his rights back, thanks to the journalists. So this is part of the story. The history is not story; it's like a story, because if we write a fiction, we can put this story in a fiction, but it's real. It is real. It is what we live in Brazil, and we are very sorry because we have many problems because of all these things that happened the last years. But now we are kind of happier, even though we are crying because many people close to us are dying. We see many people. I know that in New Zealand, this is not a reality. I see that you have very few deaths, but here we have more than 300,000 deaths in the context.
It's the same in Chile as well, isn't it? It seems so different to what other people are experiencing around the world. I mean, not just New Zealand. It seems extraordinary, and it's like I said, it seems to be part of the cause of all this fighting between, maybe it's just a cause of division. I don't know what's going on there. We can only speculate. But we were talking last night also about Glenn Greenwald and his role at the Intercept. and how we were very grateful when he left The Intercept, because if you look at all the whistleblowers, and I guess we can include the hacker from Lula,
Yes.
all the
Yes.
whistleblowers that reported to Intercept, they were all put in prison. If I understand that correctly, I might be wrong there, but I believe that all of them were. And it was only when they tried to shut down the story about Hunter Biden, just like they did with Hillary and Assange, they tried to shut down the story because it didn't suit them against Trump, of course. But I'm so glad he left that organization, because Snowden released all the documents to Intercept, and I don't think they even published 10%, if I'm right, maybe even less than that, a few percent.
Yes,
and then they took them away, so we can no longer access that. So I'm very happy that Glenn Greenwald has left that organization. I have to say that. Yeah.
So in our case here, there is a hacker. Then his name is Walter Delgatti. And I was just watching a documentary that some journalists in Brazil made to tell his story, Walter's story, because he must become a hero in Brazil, because he was the one who went to the Telegram accounts and got the conversations, the chats, and then he passed all this material to Glenn, and then he published. So now we know, because of this hacker, the hacker is the one who is our hero now, because he did all this work. So, but he's in prison now. Now he's in prison because of this. But we have something good in our legal discussion, because our court recognized that the chats are true, and they allowed Lula's lawyers to use this to defend Lula. So this was something very important in our situation here in Brazil.
Did you say that the hacker was under house arrest now, but that he had been in prison for some time? Is that the case? Or you were talking yesterday about someone under house arrest, and I can't remember whether this was the hacker that provided the leaks or whether it was Lula.
No, Lula is not in prison anymore.
Good.
But the hacker is in prison. Is at home. Is a home prison. Home prison. Yeah. He has to use a device in his ankle to guarantee that he cannot move or go very far from his house.
So a very similar story to Jeremy Hammond, almost the same story as Jeremy Hammond, I guess, who's only recently, I think 50 days ago, been released out of his halfway house, and now I think he's got an ankle bracelet, but I might be corrected on that. Yeah, yes. Very similar.
This is the situation here. So, and okay, I can read, or Sandra,
yes, please.
If she wants to
that
talk.
Would be great. Yeah.
So, okay.
Maybe before you do, can you tell me, we're suffering everywhere from fake news. No one's getting enough information, whether it's about the vaccines being shut down, any discussion, or whether it's about any government. We're having terrible trouble these days. It's getting worse and worse. How much of Brazil would you say are aware of WikiLeaks and how they got that information, and the hacker and the whistleblower? Is it a big proportion of the population?
You want to know if the population knows about the leak?
Yes. Do they know the truth, or are they? You said that they're suffering from fake news.
People know the truth because last year, just the Intercept published this, and some people knew this. But nowadays, the mainstream media also reported this fact.
Wow.
So
yeah.
So this changed everything.
Great.
Because
that's such good news.
The thing went to a point that they couldn't just hide. So they had to show, and almost everybody in Brazil nowadays knows this.
Oh, that's such encouraging news. Yeah, and also after you read your statement, I think it was very encouraging in itself. But then we should bring Sandra back in, and you guys can talk about what we should do, what you think, what like when you visited prison a lot to see Lula and keep him in contact. And I know it's a bit different situation. We were talking about how much more Julian is locked down, but I know that Lula's been through all different phases of persecution. But yeah, it would be great if you could read your speech out, and then maybe after that we'll talk a little bit about how that can transfer and give hope to Assange supporters.
Okay. So I made a short kind of presentation in the beginning, and then I start the reading one. I speak from the corner of Brazil, the closest point to Europe and Africa, and hope that my voice can be heard everywhere. I live in the northeast of Brazil, the only region in which Bolsonaro lost the 2018 election, a region that has led a process of resistance to Bolsonaro's genocide in Brazilian necropolitics. I am a teacher. I didn't say this before. I am a teacher and recently became director of the Public Education Workers Union of my state, Rio Grande do Norte. This is the name of my state. In English, it means Big River. North Big River. On April 7th, we remember 3 years of Lula's illegal prison, but we could also celebrate his freedom and the current facts happening towards the recognition of his innocence. I want to start by saying these facts to you, because I know that sometimes it's very hard for us to keep on believing when injustice has gone so far. But I want to encourage you and bring hope, because hope is the most important feeling in a journey like this. Cases like Assange's are political cases. I said this, and I want to emphasize this idea, because sometimes we think that that's just something related to justice itself. But in his case, I think as Lula's case this is a political case. This is why I don't want to talk about the legal aspects of that, but the political aspects. In our experience in Lula's case, the political fight was the most important one. So I want to share with you some aspects of our experience. Much of what is happening now in Brazil, in what concerns our victories, is due to our resistance. The first and the most important thing we did in Brazil was not to accept as true what is not true. We never accepted here the fact that Lula was a criminal, even if the media said it every time we watched the TV or judges invented crimes to accuse him. We were able to read the accusation in the context it happened, not as an isolated fact. Because Lula and Assange are not mere citizens, but citizens who can effectively change the world, who threaten the greed and the power of the exploratory economic system we live in. And such revolutionary people tend to be always victims of persecution and criminalization. So we always speak for him in the spaces we were, even when we were the only voice. The second thing we did was to organize people for freedom, as you're doing now. It's important to connect people with the cause and find authorities that speak for the cause. 2. Lula had, in his 580 days of prison, people close to his prison say every day, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for him, to encourage him to resist and to show to Brazil and to the world we wouldn't give up. There was a real national, and then international movement for Lula. In my own experience, we created a committee to do actions to alert people about Lula's cause. In my town and in many others, we created this space that could be physical or not, to speak out for Lula's freedom. Our committee was the people committed to the cause. We had a demonstration in the streets of the town using a big doll representing Lula. We also used the sound car, and on many nights, we also used the sound car, and on many nights went to the streets of the districts of the town to speak about justice and freedom for Lula. I said it later, I said it yesterday, that we have a culture to make some big dolls representing important people, and they go to the streets. It's a tradition of our carnival, and it is related to mostly to a city called Recife. I confess to you that sometimes I thought that it wouldn't be enough. After the 2018 election, I was sad, and it was hard to believe we would win. But that movement and new facts like Glenn Greenwald's action with the Vaza Jato or car wash leak in a free translation helped us to change our reality. We are close to see, I hope so, Lula as our president next year. Greenwald did something very similar to what Assange did, and he was also persecuted by the Brazilian government. And it shows us, in Brazil, the importance of freedom of speech, as you asked for Assange. So I stand today with you in solidarity, because free press is solidarity with truth, and a democracy cannot live without truth. The Brazilian history is a proof of that. And now we live the most bizarre times for people, equality and democracy in Brazil, because lie governs our country. I learned with Sandra, people, that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And that is why I am here with you to ask for freedom for Julian Assange. And from my experience, I can tell you, never stop believing it.
That's lovely. Thank you. So did you want to talk any more about that? Or Sandra, do we want to unmute you and maybe we can talk a little bit with you as well, because we haven't really spoken to you properly yet. I remember last night we were talking about, because we're relating that I do violin activism, I suppose, sometimes violin hula hoop activism, and you were relating about how music had played such a strong role in freeing Lula with the song Lula, 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 Lula. I've been trying to find it on the internet, but I couldn't find it. I didn't know how to search for that. I just kept on getting pretty mainstream YouTube channel, so it wasn't working for me. But perhaps you could go through those kind of inspiring things we talked about last night. Also, Sandra,
ole,
you'll have
ole, Lula, Lula. Okay, I mean, I make some comments perhaps about what Bruno just said. Thank you, Bruno, so much for being here with us and sharing all of this. This petroleum that Bruno is speaking about, the pre-salt, is the marine petroleum that it's under the Brazilian sea. I'm personally against this because I'm not big on this, but this is a big, international thing Bruno was talking about. About the hacker, it is very interesting indeed that Walter Delgatti, his name, that he gave this material to Glenn Greenwald, but only a very, very small fraction of what was given to him was actually published. And I would say was not even the most relevant things to free Lula. And I'm trying to understand why it was that, but enfim, that is the thing. The materials that now the hacker hacker gave to justice, etc., is being more relevant. But also, it's interesting that he was arrested as soon as he gave that material to Glenn Greenwald. I mean, they intercepted, delivered him to them. I don't know. It's very strange because as soon as he gave the materials, they identified him quickly, and he was arrested in a whole saga about his own life.
Yeah, as I was saying, that's happened to every whistleblower at The Intercept, and I'd like to believe it's nothing to do with Glenn, and it's more to do with the person funding The Intercept and why he walked away. I'd only ask why it took him so long to walk away. I would have walked away when they only published 2% or whatever it was of the Snowden files. Again, and it had not enough time for the journalists to actually research what was there. Not enough people looking at it, and now they're gone. So it's the same old sorry tale.
There is one only relevant information that I didn't say. The judge who judged Lula, he became Bolsonaro's Minister of Justice. When Bolsonaro won the election, he became his Minister of Justice. So when Walter Delgatti acted and then Glenn Greenwald published the information, he was the Minister of Justice. So he acted to sue and put him in prison. And they tried to say that Glenn was a criminal, and all these kinds of things that happens to Assange too. Just this.
So Sandra, sorry, you were talking on and I interrupted you. Please carry on. Unmute yourself.
Okay. No problem. So there is all this connection, and as we said, Walter Delgatti is our Assange because he courageously, bravely, intelligently did all this work, and also is going to, if it wasn't because Lula is being successful now in Lula's lawyers' heroic stands on this, he would be worse off. But also in Lula's case, Lula's lawyer and his team constantly sued our own government for many things that should not be happened, many rights that Lula should have to speak to his family, etc., that the government, the juridical system was not didn't want to give to him. But anything. But the other point that you were interested in, we talked in the other round, was about the Nazi connection. It's well known that in Latin America there was this they call red line. I think in English it's called red line. In Portuguese, Bruno, I don't know if we call linha dos ratos. Enfim, we don't speak much about this, unfortunately, not even when we study history, but this Nazi red line was a red line set up by the Allied forces with Vatican people, and I think the Red Cross also to make the life of the tough, important Nazis like Dr. Mengele and among others. I think there were 5 top Nazis that came to live here very well and died here well too, some of them anyway. And these Nazis people knew about them, the government knew about them, and they had the full protection of the military dictatorship that ruled our country from 1964 to 85. And both this, I don't speak the name of this devil who is our president, but who is a military, he was expelled, but he is part of the military government and was part of the people who tortured people during the dictatorship, and he is openly, publicly, shamelessly, and always speaks about that, praises Hitler, quotes him, and praises the people who have been charged with torture during the dictatorship openly, even today, saying that, for example, the dictatorship did not kill enough people and he came to destroy and things like that. So I think there is a lot of stuff to be done regarding history about the Nazi red light to Brazil, especially in Curitiba, the place where Lula was taken. I think it was not by mere coincidence that they picked Nazis like symbolism and stuff like that, that they on purpose took Lula to Curitiba, first to Porto Alegre, which is a town that's also very famous for their Nazi sympathizers since the Second World War, and then to Curitiba, Curitiba had the second largest Nazi party outside of Germany. It's not a small deal. Also, it's known, at least I've seen some documents. Now, lately I searched the internet and wasn't able to find them anymore, but there are documents saying that Hitler had the biggest foreign aid project here in Brazil because he wanted to set a new German here in case the Nazi German failed. They wanted to set to resettle here, etc. So there is a lot of stuff, interesting connection. So it's not by coincidence that this Judge Moro is in Curitiba, that he's a Nazi, that all of these things is happening because I think they are trying to realign themselves, to reconstitute themselves by taking over government, and they pick this Bolsonaro. I spoke his name, his bad name, that he's. I believe I told you I don't. It's not a joke. My family heard me talking about that, and they said, "Mom, how can you speak a thing like that?" Because I said he is a Mengele child. And, I think they did something to his brain. I don't know. I do believe that because certainly he's not a human in the sense we understand, even his speech, everything. And he doesn't have the least shame to speak all these things. Nobody in the whole world, not even the Nazis themselves, spoke like that. Spoke about torture like that, defended, they denied, they did it behind the scenes and all. But, enfim, this is the Nazis thing that I could speak hours about this, but
you were
we'll not because we're here to talk about Assange.
No. But you were talking about that you feel that he's operating under a sort of eugenics, Nazi sense. But I think that is actually happening all around the world in different forms, whether it's the 60% of COVID deaths in the UK are disabled people. It almost looks targeted. And then you've got mismanagement of care homes all around the world where elderly people are mixed with COVID patients and they're dying. And what I will say is with the freedom of information and the desire for us to all make our own decisions based on true information that we have access to, we need that just as much about the medication that are being, there's various types of vaccines and some questions being made and who knows which different one is good, the Russian one, the Pfizer. Yesterday I was relaying my understanding, and I might need to be corrected on this, but my understanding is that South American countries are being held to ransom by Pfizer. They want the vaccines. The people want the vaccines. And I believe that if people want the vaccines, they should be able to have them and people shouldn't give them a hard time. But at the same time, I believe that people should have freedom of choice, like, Nuremberg Code things. I believe in both sides of this. And I think we're all experiencing different scenarios, different politics. Sometimes it's coming from the left. Sometimes it's coming from the right. But the common thread is eugenics in this. I don't think. I mean, have you come across Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset? It's actually quite insane. It's coming from the World Economic Forum, Agenda 2030. Wherever you look, there is a move towards this kind of sick, anti-human behavior. And what we need more than anything now is information so that people can have an informed decision and, be able to make up their own mind and not be coerced or forced into it through not giving you welfare if you don't do this or that, So there's so many different opinions broiling over in the world, and I'm sympathetic to both sides. I feel that it's really important that everyone gets their voice heard or at least gets access to information. Do you agree that you see this around the world, this sense of eugenics? Oh, sorry, you both muted. Either one.
I think that there is some kind of experiment going on in Brazil. That's what I think, because it does not make sense. Because if it is right, what many European intellectuals, doctors, and concerned people think that this is wrong, the vaccine is wrong, masks and all of that, why Bolsonaro says that here, why he's championing this case to put us left people in a corner. So no one here in Brazil, no one will dare speak. I will not take the vaccine from China, the one from China. The others, I don't know. I don't trust that vaccine from China. I'm afraid that.
All mine, I've had all mine, and I'm not having this one.
But in any case, no one in Brazil will say in the left will defend any of this because it is what he says. He doesn't wash hands. He goes walking in the streets, and then if he sees a puddle of water, he makes a point to wash his hand right there and dry his hand in his clothes and touch people and all of that. And it doesn't make sense that he is the one, because if this is right, that makes him a hero, if the vaccine is wrong, makes genetic modification, which he's called the jacaré. I thought of that, maybe some trope. He's not capable of that intellectually, cognitively, but whatever. So it's a big issue, but I did not want to hijack the Assange issue that we're here to talk about Assange. So we could
I think the global solidarity is so important, and that's why it's so wonderful to have 15 countries all working together, because a lot of us, I feel quite isolated in New Zealand. I was saying last night how in Wellington, it's such a small town. It's for a capital city, it's only a couple of hundred people in the CBD, in the main area, and yet everyone here works for government, so no one will speak. Everyone is quiet, and the only reason I can say anything is because I work from myself, from my attic, and I have that privilege. I'm so lucky. But one of the things and the reasons why I have been listing these events as much as possible, no matter whether the people hate me or love me or are indifferent, the reason I've been listing those protests, whatever happens, is because I want people to feel connected with these individuals all around the world, because we're all suffering from a censorship, absolute blackout. Particularly, I don't know what it's like in Brazil, but our channels that support Assange are just going down one by one. There seems to be attacks on the platforms that do allow them a voice. It's just mayhem. No one's getting proper information. And it almost seems like the governments are in our face doing whatever it is which will upset the people the most, almost everywhere, to cause a sort of absolute hysteria and madness, anger. I don't think many people that are in the Assange activist arena have any hope in blue or red or green parties at all. They have been completely burnt. And I'm so glad that you guys in Brazil have at least some hope that Lula can come back. I really hope that he does. Last night, you guys, I really wanted to ask you about election integrity, because we saw what happened in America. There was no doubt some funny business going on. What has your feeling been? Do you think, is it just fake news that caused him to get in? Or do you think that it's actually something else, and that there is fiddling of machines that count the votes? What do you think? You might have to unmute. Unmute. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
In my opinion,
yes.
In my opinion, it was the context, because Lula was the favorite, and he could not run. So this was something that changed everything. So, and they knew this. They knew that, and the fact that he couldn't run would make some difference. So that's why he couldn't run. And then we had a big crisis in Brazil. We had the criminalization of Lula and his party, and also fake news. All this together, people in despair, people wanting to believe in anything that can save their lives. So they produced something that was called new. The current president,
but it was
president
old.
now.
It was old.
Yeah, and I said it. And I said it yesterday. He was a representative for 30 years, and he didn't do anything there.
Do you guys have paper ballots? Oh, sorry. Do you have paper ballots or do you have machines counting your votes?
Here we have machines.
Well,
here in
be
Brazil have
suspect.
machines.
Be very suspect of that. I don't know if he really did win. Because that's been the experience in a lot of places. And of course, we've got the attack on third parties. Anywhere else in the world where you don't have such strong support for an Indigenous person who's rose up against all the odds, everywhere else in the world, we're finding the opposite scenario that, and people are questioning, in New Zealand, third parties that were running that were not the corrupt Labour or the corrupt National or the Greens. The third parties that were coming up, they had big Facebook followings, masses of people hyping about them. They had a bigger site online than the Labour Party that won. 3 days before the election, they deleted him off the internet, the third party. Now, I wasn't a fan of that third party. I actually had a tiny party that I voted for because they spoke for Assange, and this one didn't. So I thought, oh, I'm not going to do that. But I was horrified when 3 days before, Jacinda just removed them from the internet. And a very similar story happened with Susie Dawson and Kim.com in New Zealand a long time ago in an election, where they weren't even listed on the electoral lists. The media wasn't even listing the party as an option. It just fell off the bottom of the list, and no media would cover them. So we were so suffering from a censorship, and we get stuck with Jacinda that a lot of people who don't watch proper news and are, watching fake news, they believe that these parties are doing the right thing. And I can tell you, underneath that beautiful, friendly exterior is not someone doing the right thing at all. And we're just suffering from terrible information like everyone.
Mm-hmm. In our case, me particularly, I believe in our system, in the machines, just because we see that our experience, because if it was not, if it was wrong, I think Lula would never win an election.
Right.
Here, the same method was used to elect Lula and to elect Bolsonaro, and once Lula won, and now Bolsonaro won. So
I don't know. I mean, I think this meddling with election machines has come quite recently. I don't know if it was even around in 2016. I think, or maybe it was, but definitely not before then. I mean, because I don't think there was so much focus the rest of the world. But we've seen ridiculous results in New Zealand. For instance, all the farmers were against Labour because they'd screwed over the farmers badly here. And there's a lot of suicides in farmers. There are actually prisoners of COVID in New Zealand, and we've only had 26 deaths, I believe. And yet there are people locked up because they're refusing a PCR test. And this is where I draw the line. This is also fascist. So I appreciate everyone coming from a place where they come from, but it just doesn't feel very organic. I wonder whether those electoral machines have they found a way of tampering, and that's maybe why you got Bolsonaro this time.
We have an older tradition using these machines. I think it's from the 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
We use this machine, so it's not very new for us. And actually, here he says, the president said that they don't work. He was elected by the machines, but he says that they don't work. So I don't know.
Well, it certainly seemed the case in America, but that information didn't get out in the mainstream media. It certainly seemed like the case. Not that I wanted Trump to win. I certainly didn't want Biden to win either. So it's a bit of a tough one, but I can see that there is a lot of people that don't think that Biden won. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, he can't even hold a sentence together. He can't, he's like a dementia patient and he's a war criminal. So it's just another Hillary all over again. And people just didn't buy it. And that's why there's so much unrest, I think, there. And certainly there's been some algorithms or some kind of meddling with machines. And there's quite a lot of documentation out there about it. I don't know anything. I'm speculating, but it certainly seems it from the word on the ground by people that seem to follow better news than others. Yeah, that's what I feel. Election integrity is a major problem. We are really losing democracy. I think because of what's rolling out at the moment, they needed friendly presidents, but it seems yeah, I don't know what to say, but yeah, I have got my concerns about election integrity everywhere. New Zealand, England, Boris Johnson, I mean, please. It just doesn't make sense. Macron, how? It doesn't actually make Trudeau, what? So I see this everywhere, and it seems to be a common thread, and it tends to be the people that inform themselves with news services that get information from WikiLeaks. That are saying this. Oh dear, I'm running out of battery.
We have a movement in the whole world. I think it's stopping now, but we had this movement that people from the outright, they would win elections because we had a crisis. So sometimes, because, for example, in Brazil, we had the rising of fundamentalist religion in these last periods. For example, nowadays we have 30% of our population that goes to gospel churches. And here, gospel churches are very related to fundamentalism. They use these images and these speeches related to very conservative values. So this is something that changed our reality, and also that helped. Nowadays, they are the greatest supporters of Bolsonaro, for example. Then we have the military, for example, that is another. So we have some parts of our society that give this support, and this was something that made this reality that we had. Many people didn't go voting, so this is also something that happened because many people were, I don't believe in anyone, So this is something that happened, and it is happening in the whole world, and this is affecting elections too. In the case of the United States, for example, Biden was vice president when all that story happened in Brazil. He was operating to do all this that we had in Brazil, and the result was a Brazilian Trump. So we have no the politics in the United States are very complex in this way. They have few choices, not few choices, but they just have the same choice, not for them, but for the world in a whole, as a whole. Because, for example, in the case of the United States, the election of Biden made the vaccination go further. Trump, when Trump was president there, they had the same number we have now in Brazil, dying. People dying, like 4,000 people in a day, in 24 hours in Brazil. In the United States now we have this in Brazil. When Trump was the president. So for them, for the population there, it is different now in some ways because they can be healthy now and they can, or they can live and they have money to stay at home or to survive.
I don't think they have an awful lot of money. I don't think they have an awful lot of money. And also Biden wrote the Patriot Act and is working on Patriot Act 2. And we're getting to a situation which is really against Nuremberg code, where you can't say, okay, you're not going to get welfare because you're not going to take medication. And Biden is pushing through all sorts of horrendous Orwellian stuff. So I mean, if you look what he did in Ukraine, and if you're talking about Nazis, Ukraine and Biden is a shocker. I mean, I don't think much of the world have a clue. It's disgusting. And what's going on in America seems to be the people that are questioning whether their government is trustworthy and therefore questioning things like this non-tested vaccine. I mean, I think other ones have got better records than the ones that they've got access to, but they are putting it in the basis of welfare. They're putting it so that you can't go to a sports game if you're not, and we're making it like two-tier society. You guys can't go to the supermarket because you haven't, been medicated. You guys all get to, and what that causes is the sort of people that have got questions and want free information and just informed consent, more information, not just shutting down anyone who says anything bad or hiding the death that have come from some of the vaccines. And that's why some countries are like Holland, I think, there are several European countries that are having terrible trouble. And I think we're just not getting that information out there at all. So I have major reservations about, I think it looks like he's doing the right thing, but I'm not convinced. And when you make people like us who use WikiLeaks as their key sources and go to journalists that report on it, when you make us because we're skeptical, say, then what you're doing is you're making the people that believe in it fight the people that don't believe in it. And now anyone who dissents against government or against some of these big pharma profit problems, anyone who dissents about that, you're shut down, you're removed. There's doctors, epidemiologists, there's all sorts of people saying we have to be cautious. We can't inject billions of people with something that hasn't even got FDA approval and is still in the experimental phase. So I think we've got to keep our heads on that, because if we end up with a Blade Runner Hunger Games scenario where there are the classes that have and the classes that are out of the system, we are talking about civil war in every country. So I think we've got to be cautious in thinking that Biden's doing the right thing. I won't believe it. Neither Trump nor Biden were on the people's side. That is clear. The people that did seem to be, although I have my questions about them too, like Tulsi Gabbard, who by the way got way more in the primaries than Kamala Harris, who looks to be the new president. If there's anything we know, the president of the United States doesn't seem to have much control over anything. Yeah, and Kamala might well be the new head person once Biden can't form a sentence anymore. But she had like 1 or 2% of the people voting for her. She locked away people, colored, Hispanics, Black, with crimes like, smoking weed, and then put them into a private prison system and then profited from them. These are the kind of nutcase psychopaths that we've got, pretending they're doing the right thing. And I know that in Brazil you're having a different situation, but I think in other countries they're having the opposite scenario, and that's why we're all at each, everyone's conflicted, because they're going, how can it be that people are dropping dead in the streets in China, like flies in the beginning, and then no one's seen that. No, I don't think anyone's seen that here. I don't know if you've literally seen people just dropping dead in the streets in Brazil. Has that happened? Like literally just fainting over and then they're taken away? Does that happen? Because you remember in the Wuhan when we got the first footage of what was going on with this Wuhan lab potential, probably developed by Fauci in America, potentially, who knows, speculation again. But there's a lot of stories there. Did you experience actual people dying in the streets in front of you like that violently, or was it you experienced it through friends and family? No, remember the videos that came out of Wuhan in February last year? People were filming people and they were literally dropping off balconies, dropping to the ground. Do you know what I mean? It looked like they were dying in the streets, literally watching them live. It was crazy. And the whole world got very scared. Did you experience that in Brazil in person?
I think not.
Right. Okay. But have you've lost family members and friends that have suffered from this? So certainly there's a lot more deaths than anywhere else, even in England, are experiencing. Is that right? Right.
Yeah, in our experience, many people are dying. We didn't see we see the collapse of the health system now. Now, this is the phase we are in Brazil. People want to go to the hospital, for example. They don't want. They need to go to the hospital, and they don't have
money,
a space to go. Yes, any hospital to go. So we have people waiting to go to hospital, but they can't. They die before being there. This is the situation we have now.
It's just classic eugenics. It's really an underhand eugenics. No matter where you look, all for different reasons, but no matter where you look, that's what I'm seeing personally. Right. Well, I would love to talk a little bit more about, because you gave us a lot of hope yesterday when we were talking and we lost our recording, but you gave us a lot of hope as Assange supporters with your talk about music and, what did work in your campaign. I think there are a lot of parallels between Julian and Lula for sure. Green walls and Julian, perhaps, but I know Glenn didn't get arrested or anything, did he?
Who? Glenn? No.
Glenn didn't end up getting arrested. No.
No.
Okay. So I'd love to talk. Yeah, you guys yesterday also, maybe after you give us a little bit of hope about the things that do work and what does. I mean, because we feel we're so crushed by censorship that our voices are not being heard. All our tweets might be seen by millions of people, but they're all activists and they're all highly isolated. And that's why the listing of these global events to make everyone feel connected as much as possible when they're isolated and confused in their own kind of, I certainly haven't got many people around me that feel the same way. So if you can give us any last words of encouragement, and then I would encourage you guys to have a discussion in Portuguese so that you can, relay to people who can't speak English. And then after that, I'll come back and ask Mark if he can play our videos. Okay?
I think the experience that Sandra was relating before, and I didn't know why she because we went to another issues, but the experience was that we had, for example, a trumpetist, and he was playing in the streets. We went to the streets sometimes, and we used the sound card, as I said, to alert people about what we were defending. And also we had this idea, the idea. I remember two different events. One was going to the shopping mall when everybody was like a group of people went to a shopping mall, and then there they surprisingly started to sing that song that Sandra was singing. This was one of our movements. And another one that I remember was we went to fairs, and then we started to ask people to write letters for Lula, and then we sent the letters to the prison. This is something very good, very nice to do, and people answer to this call. Sometimes I don't know how it's going to be there, but it's a good idea. So you ask, send a letter or a postcard. Can be a postcard. You give the postcard to the person, and then he or she writes, and then you send the letter. This is very motivating for him. Assange. If he can receive the letters, I don't know how it.
We don't know. I know that there have been some responses from Julian from a long time ago, but as far as I know, there hasn't been an awful lot of responses for a long time. Where the messages are getting. I think the last time we heard Julian's voice was in a documentary where they had to reveal Stella Morris's identity and the children. They didn't want to. They were trying to keep it secret. But the awful judge, a Kafkaesque judge in England, forced Stella to reveal herself. So they tried to preempt it by coming in with a video made by them rather than allowing the mainstream media to stream the narrative again. And so you had beautiful video of Julian's children on the phone with him. And one time I heard him talking in that video, and it was very special. He was talking about his child's birthday cake and did it have candles? Running a site called Candles. I was like, oh my God. So I just, that was the last voice I've ever heard from him. I know, I'm told that John Shipton talks to him quite often, and Stella rings in once a day. So I believe that he's getting phone calls, but he's not getting legal representation. He's not seeing his lawyers. He's cold. He hasn't got his clothes. And they're freezing him. They've got COVID patients in the ward, in the block with him. He's always inside. No vitamin D. He's already got bad lungs from all these years without sunlight. So the situation it just feels so dire, because the last little snippet of voice we have from him is that phone call, and then the one before that is where I think he appeared on a video and answered some questions on Rutley, and that is one interview that I think everyone should watch, particularly towards the end, because he warns of the technocracy that's rolling in, and the dangers of big tech, big pharma, all these academics, press, military complex, alphabet agencies, all working together in the Mickey Mat, as they call it, all working together against the people. So yeah, I think that's the last we've heard of Julian's voice ourselves. And of course, they won't let him have a voice in his own court case. He's kept in a glass box. So the best we've seen is a very distant picture that someone risked a lot to take in the court. That's all we've got from him. It's very worrying. It's really, really worrying.
Yeah. So
do you guys... Oh, sorry.
Okay, no.
I was just going to say, do you guys want to carry on, unless you want to say any more in English? Do you guys want to have your 10 minutes or however long you want to talk together in Portuguese?
Yes.
And nothing else you want to say in English? Do you want to tell people where they can follow you in English before we cut off? Your Twitter handle and your Facebook name, maybe, if you want people to follow you.
my name in Facebook is Bruno Vital, and my name, my account in Twitter is Arnaldo_Bruno. Just
Arnaldo_Bruno.
Yes, just this name. But mainly I post in Portuguese.
Right,
if it's a problem for anyone.
No, we've always got Google Translate. That's all good. And Sandra, before I go and leave you to talk in Portuguese, would you like to let people know where they can follow you? Because you've been doing some beautiful sign action in Natal, solo action, whole heap of social media activism. I'm really, really delighted that you've been standing up for Brazil and Assange. That's wonderful. So do you want to tell people, you need to unmute yourself, but do you want to tell people where they can find you if you wish?
Well, the same as Bruno, we do our activism in Portuguese because that's the language. For Assange, for example, the language that's more vulnerable. There is a lot of wonderful materials in English, and I don't know French and other languages, but even in Spanish. But in Portuguese, but we do have a page, Assange Live Brazil. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, so I'm going to sign off. I might disappear for a little bit. I'll come back up and I'll put myself on mute. And you guys just go for your lives. And how long do you want to talk? And I'll come back. About 5-10 minutes or more?
I think we had 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay, I'll be back in 10 minutes and come back and rescue you. Okay, bye-bye.
Tchau.
Já conversou em português, né?
Então, Bruno, diga.
Não, vou falar aqui para o pessoal, avisar, né? Que nós somos do Rio Grande do Norte, né, no Brasil. Se tiver alguém de Portugal assistindo. E nós estamos aqui nessa live hoje para falar um pouco sobre esse movimento que é internacional. Nós estamos colaborando, né? Nós estávamos trocando figurinhas sobre nossa experiência no Brasil em relação ao movimento que nós fizemos em torno da liberdade de Lula e agora aqui colaborando com o movimento sobre a liberdade de Assange, né? Para quem não conhece, Julian Assange, ele é um jornalista australiano que está preso porque ele publicou informações que eram que ofendiam, né, que atingiam o governo dos Estados Unidos sobre a guerra do Iraque, né? Ele recebeu essas informações e publicou, mantendo o sigilo da fonte, como jornalistas têm que fazer. E aí, por causa disso, ele foi preso e continua preso até hoje. Ele está na Inglaterra, né? Hoje em dia ele está preso na Inglaterra. E esse movimento que nós estamos realizando hoje, assim como o pessoal realizou em vários lugares do mundo, pede a liberdade de Assange, né? E é importante ressaltar que a liberdade de Assange está ligada à liberdade de expressão, né? O direito de liberdade de expressão, porque ele foi preso em desrespeito ao seu direito de jornalista, né, de publicar as informações que ele teve acesso, que são de interesse da população mundial. Então, como ele enfrentou grandes interesses de grandes nações, ele terminou sendo criminalizado e permanece há 2 anos já preso, né, retirado do convívio da sua família e sofrendo também, né, sem poder ter acesso, né, que são as informações que Alex estava passando para nós, né, com dificuldade de ter de estar num lugar onde ele tem acesso ao sol, onde ele tenha a possibilidade de receber suas próprias roupas, de receber seus advogados. Então, são várias violações, é uma prisão que significa várias violações aos direitos humanos e especialmente ao direito à liberdade de expressão. Para quem não conhece o próprio Assange também, é interessante saber que ele é um dos criadores daquele site muito famoso chamado WikiLeaks, que foi exatamente o site que vazou essas informações sobre a guerra do Iraque, que vazou informações sobre as negociações, por exemplo, que José Serra fez com empresas de petróleo dos Estados Unidos para interferirem no pré-sal brasileiro, né, e que fez muita diferença aqui para o Brasil também. E não só do Brasil, né, não só notícias sobre o Brasil, não só notícias sobre os Estados Unidos, mas sobre outras nações. Então, Assange se tornou um grande inimigo de várias nações poderosas, simplesmente porque ele recebe informações e ele informa a população mundial sobre essas informações, né, por esse site que é bastante reconhecido, bastante famoso. E o caso dele é um caso muito similar ao caso que nós tivemos de Glenn Greenwald aqui no Brasil, com o The Intercept, quando vazou as conversas a chamada Vaza Jato, né, que foram as conversas da Operação Lava Jato, as mensagens trocadas pelo ex-juiz Sérgio Moro e os procuradores da Lava Jato. Naquele momento, né, aqui no Brasil, o pessoal queria prender, disseram que ele era um espião, que ele não podia ter feito aquilo, mas ele estava fazendo o trabalho de jornalista dele. Recebeu as informações da fonte, eram informações relevantes e ele quis publicar. E fez a publicação, como os jornalistas têm direito de fazer, e uma democracia, em qualquer democracia que seja digna desse nome, se faz, né, e permite-se fazer. Então, a luta pela liberdade de ações significa também a luta pela liberdade de expressão. A luta pela liberdade de expressão significa o fortalecimento da democracia nos países e o direito à informação das pessoas, porque no momento que o jornalista divulga informação, mesmo que não agrade a determinado governo, ela se torna uma informação que a população pode ter acesso. Consequentemente, ela pode fazer seus juízos de valores a partir dessas informações, né, confiáveis que ela vai receber. Então, esse movimento tem essa finalidade, e agora eu vou passar a palavra para a Sandra.
Eu expresso minha gratidão com a mão no coração. Não sei se vocês não podem ver a imagem, né? Mas, assim, literalmente, tanto quanto possível, a Bruno, pelo companheirismo dele, por estar aqui, resumo muito bem colocado que ele fez de Assange de uma linha geral, de modo que mesmo as pessoas que não estão familiarizadas podem ver e entender um pouco do que está se passando. Eu quero dizer que Lula livre combina com Assange livre, convidar a militância incrível, fantástica, aguerrida, criativa do movimento Lula livre para chegar junto dessa luta, que é uma luta por vários direitos que importa para a gente na América Latina, né? O companheiro Bruno falou do direito de livre expressão e do fortalecimento da democracia, das garantias do Estado de Direito Democrático, né? E focando nesse aspecto da luta contra o Estado que a gente chama de lawfare, que virou uma palavra em português, né? Mas, além disso, tem direitos muito importantes para nós, para a nossa militância, que é o direito do exílio. Exílio, por exemplo, Assange foi arrancado, literalmente arrancado, se vocês verem o videozinho e a fotografia, foi arrancado, porque ele se recusou como um desobediente civil, né? Não queria se entregar assim, então eles literalmente o levaram ilegalmente de dentro de uma embaixada de uma nação latino-americana, né? Então, que foi conivente com isso, mas que o direito do exílio é um direito sacramentado, né, nos tratados internacionais dos quais o próprio Equador foi parte, é um direito humano universal que foi violado, e isso é grave, quer dizer que se qualquer uma pessoa procurar exílio ou refúgio numa embaixada, isso vira um precedente perigoso. Para a nossa ditadura militar, por exemplo, muitos brasileiros fizeram uso desse direito de exílio e de refúgio, né? E as suas vidas foram salvas por causa disso, independente de qual fosse a embaixada, de qual país, como é um direito humano universal, reconhecido por toda a legislação e jurisprudência internacional, as embaixadas aceitavam essa pessoa sem questionar ideologicamente o viés daquela pessoa, mas com esse precedente que agora a gente tem de uma pessoa, um jornalista ser arrancado de dentro de uma embaixada, sem crime, né? Sem prova e sem crime, exatamente como o caso do nosso Lula. Isso nos diz respeito e merece o fortalecimento desse movimento, né? Como, de novo, eu reafirmo, Lula livre combina com Assange livre. Nosso querido Lula, além do artigo que Bruno citou na parte que ele falou em inglês muito bem, do The Guardian, né, que Lula falou em defesa de Julian, a gente viu que na entrevista de Greenwald também Lula falou, eu até pensei que a galera Assange livre ia recortar, ia utilizar aquelas falas de Lula lá, porque mesmo Lula estando preso, Lula teve sim a coragem de falar muito ali naquela entrevista, mandar inclusive mensagem ao companheiro Assange, como Lula sempre fala, né? Além disso, Lula levou a carta do pai de Assange ao Papa numa das primeiras visitas que Lula fez quando saiu da prisão e do Brasil, em seguida que ele foi receber aquele prêmio em Paris. Então, quem sabe lá, né? Então, tem muitas conexões bacanas para a gente se juntar. A gente sabe que a solidariedade internacional foi o que fez muita diferença para nosso querido Lula, para a nossa vitória de libertar, né, e de vencer os processos de lawfare. Então, eu queria muito agradecer a Bruno e convidar a militância Lula Livre para se juntar com sua, ao menos para divulgar e para repassar nossas atividades aqui, né? E fico muito feliz de compartilhar esse momento aqui com o Bruno, que veio assim com muita generosidade, com muita energia, né? Compartilhar com a gente as experiências da luta Lula livre, do que nosso país está passando agora, das dificuldades políticas, econômicas e sanitárias pelas quais o nosso país está passando com as pessoas fora do nosso país, o que é muito importante, e ao mesmo tempo que ele também, de um modo muito bacana, prestou sua solidariedade à nossa luta Assange livre, Lula livre, que eu vim inclusive para essa luta Assange livre por causa da luta Lula livre, né? Já estava no meio aí e agora vi que realmente a gente tem que cuidar para que o estado de lawfare não se torne um estado internacional, para que essas jurisprudências que estão sendo quebradas, esses precedentes da confiscação, né, do Estado de Direito e da jurisprudência internacional que a gente quer que melhore, não piore através de criar precedentes muito perigosos. Então é isso, agradeço demais a Bruno e espero que as pessoas que nos escutem em português, se quiserem materiais da luta Assange livre, inclusive dos materiais das falas de Lula, que foram várias, né, em favor da liberdade de Julian Assange, estão lá na nossa página Assange Livre Brasil. Então, gratidão a Bruno e gratidão a Alex, que nos convidou para esse momento, e ao companheiro Mark Luber, que está nos escutando aí, também providenciando essa questão técnica aí, para que as nossas vozes cheguem e ampliem o movimento. Gratidão a todo mundo, né? E que a mandala se expanda. Não sei se Bruno quer retornar e dizer mais alguma coisa aí, de volta para o querido Bruno, companheiro muito querido do meu coração, e coração com a parte ação aqui bem forte.
Só agradecer, na verdade, Sandra, a oportunidade e agradecer ao pessoal que acompanhou, que viu esse vídeo, né, e que possam levar essa mensagem para outras pessoas também. É muito grave a gente ter um jornalista preso porque publicou fatos reais, né? Teve acesso e publicou fatos reais. É muito grave para todos os países. Não é uma ameaça só para nós do Brasil, para quem está na Inglaterra, para a Austrália, que é o país de origem, mas para qualquer país que deseja ter espaços democráticos de comunicação. Então, quem puder repassar, quem puder levar a mensagem, quem puder espalhar isso, né? Espalhem para as pessoas poderem saber. And also, I'd like to thank Mark that is here helping us, giving us support.
Of course, guys.
Okay, yeah.
I'm here, just listening. I know.
Okay, I second Bruno. Thank you, Mark, very much for this opportunity to have us speaking in English as well as in Portuguese, and that's very nice for you to be here with us.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I should be like speaking a lot because it's like Alex broadcast, but yeah, I mean I listened to all of it and I'm very impressed by it, and thank you guys for being here and educating everyone about what's going on there. I mean, it's not that we know a lot about it because our media doesn't talk about these things. I mean, we're completely left in the dark. I'm from Europe, and like, we don't hear anything about these things. So I appreciate learning from you guys. Okay, so Alex, you want to show these 3 videos too. Do you guys think I should just start playing these or something? Or should we just wait for her?
Are we live or not?
No, we're pre-recording this, and then she's probably going to
Okay. No, I think she's coming, so I'd like to wait if she's coming soon.
Yeah.
But, something that is important, I want to talk to say to her. There is a guy. A Brazilian guy, a Brazilian actor. He's really famous in Brazil, and he is in New Zealand. And he was in this campaign here. He is famous, and he can, say something and people pay attention to it. So if she can make this contact, maybe it will be good for the campaign, your campaign, the Assange campaign.
Okay. Maybe you should forward the information to her. That not sure we should mention it on the air yet. I don't know. Yeah, she'll probably be back. Maybe not start playing the videos without her.
How long will we talk? You know?
Well, it is past the 10 minutes already, so for sure. Yeah. Oh, total, by the way, the entire broadcast is about 1.5 hours now. So yeah. How is that with Assange? Is it like really really alive right now there, where you are? I mean, in here there's like no media talking about it. We have like one radio.
No, in Brazil, no.
Go ahead.
Not now. I've seen something about him in the television, but I don't remember when. But now, no. There is nothing about him in the video.
No, here neither. Like, only during the trial in September there was one radio outlet talking about it, and they just said he is accused of hacking, and they didn't even call him a journalist. They said like he's a man is accused of hacking into the U.S. military. It's not even correct. It's just that's the kind of picture they want to paint of him. Oh, she's back. She's coming. Yeah.
Hello, back.
Hello. Have you been speaking until now, or was I a bit late?
Oi.
Oh, great.
We just finished.
Great. Oh, well, that was good timing then. I just got myself a cup of tea. Great.
We're
I
waiting
don't know.
for you.
Yeah, fantastic. One of the
just need
things we did
something.
talk. Oh, sorry. One of the things we talked about. I'm not sure if we talked about it today because with 2 hours sleep, I'm sort of in a blur now. But there were some South American countries that were held to ransom by Pfizer, weren't there? Where they wanted the vaccine, but they wanted also not to have to sign away their indemnity. Then they were forced into insurance, and then they were asked to give their natural resources, their embassy buildings, and their bases as collateral for that insurance, as well as getting an offshore bank account so that they could pay them outside of their country. It seems like the ultimate in almost like a medical mafia that are holding whole countries to ransom for and people who want the vaccine. I feel that they should be able to choose and get the vaccine that they want, and people who don't, I believe they don't need to, and that we shouldn't be talking about vaccine passports in any world. That's just Nazis all over again. I don't know if maybe Mark knows more about that than because we didn't know any of us yesterday, but I know that there's been reports of 2 or 3 countries that have been held to ransom. And the other thing we talked about yesterday, which is I don't know if you know journalist Whitney Webb, but she was based in Chile and she luckily got out, but she said that it was so bad there that you had to go to the police, ask the police for a pass to leave your house every 2-3 days. Otherwise you are absolutely stuck inside. No sun, no exercise, no human contact. It just sounds like an absolute nightmare. And I don't know. I mean, you're obviously not getting the lockdown because you've got Bolsonaro, and you're having terrible economic problems. Everyone's just having to try and work anyway. I understand where you're coming from that, but maybe if Mark hears us later, he can confirm that because he might be more knowledgeable on that issue. But that's another concern of mine, that big pharma are not our friends, just like big tech are not our friends. And I think they're holding whole countries to ransom, and there's major questions about the different vaccines and what's suitable and what isn't. So it's just awful that we can't speak about it. And I think that also fuels the suspicion. Whatever you think about it, there's no doubt that when you censor someone, you set a whole lot of people thinking the absolute opposite, and it may not be true. But if you're going to censor them, it suggests that you can't back up your words with evidence. I would really like to see some more accountability and people pushing back against that, so that there's freedom of choice. And that people should be allowed to take the vaccine if they want to, especially if they're in a high risk category. This is fundamental. But when big pharma are holding whole countries to ransom for their resources and bases and embassies, you've got to start asking questions. It seems the height of insanity to me. I don't know what you think about that.
I understand what you're saying. Because we have this problem. In our case, we wanted, in my opinion, we needed to have our own vaccine, a Brazilian vaccine.
Because you've got good universities there doing the work, and good specialists that you can trust. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we have this, but it was not the case because the president didn't want it. So now we have to buy vaccines, and it's very difficult. Because there is no vaccine for everybody, and many offers appear, but limited offers because there is no vaccine for everybody. So we need to vaccinate, but we don't have vaccines for everybody. This is the situation. And we have 10% of our population. There is a poll that shows that 90% of Brazilians want to vaccinate.
Right. Okay, that's so different from other places.
Because we have a tradition to vaccinate in Brazil. Yeah. We have a health system that is not perfect, but is traditional. And we have this culture of going to health facilities and taking and getting vaccinated. So it's normal for Brazilians to get vaccinated. And we see many people dying around. So this is scary, and everybody wants to have a normal life.
Right.
So
we
think that
in some ways it's being held to ransom anyway. But yeah. And you were saying you wanted to talk about something that you thought we missed, that you talked together about in Portuguese?
What we talked in Portuguese was the same conversation. We tried to explain what we were doing. And I said to Mark that I wanted you to come back because I need to give you there is a guy, a Brazilian guy, an actor. He's a famous actor in Brazil, and he is, I think, living in New Zealand. His name is José. His name is José de Abreu.
Could you send me that name on a tweet or something? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I will look him up. I would really be interested.
Yes, he uses his Twitter always. He's always using his Twitter, and he was in our campaign here, in Lula's campaign. So and he was always participating and speaking about. So I think that you can get in contact with him there very easily.
Thank you.
He's not famous. He's not famous in New Zealand.
All right. Okay.
So, you can
That's
go
wonderful.
to his house and search.
Yeah.
Try to talk to him. I don't know where the district or city, town, I don't know where he lives, but you will find.
Okay, well that's wonderful, wonderful. All right then. Well, did we? Have you talked to Mark? Has he come back on?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here listening.
Oh, you're brilliant. Okay. All right then. So we've already done everyone's contact details. Maybe Sandra, you're coming back on to say something. But before if we want to sign out with any last words, then Mark, if you've got those links from Twitter, I would love it if you could play the videos so that we've got one unified video that we can just upload to Unity4J and any channels that want it.
Okay.
It will be wonderful. Okay. Yeah. So Sandra, are there any last words from you or Bruno that you want to cover?
No, I just would like to thank Bruno very much for his generosity to come and, extend this time here with us, sharing his comments and he offering his solidarity to Assange, to free Assange. And, I thank you, Alex, also for inviting us to be here to speak about free Assange and how our experience in the Lula Livre movement could be relevant for Assange, for free Assange. I myself do think that there are many strategies that could be effectively used, but it depends on culture also, of course. Now, different cultures have different impacts and receive differently actions and political actions. And that's it. I'm very grateful to share this moment with Bruno, a person that I personally respect, and hope that he can take the message to his party, his workers' party companions, his Free Lula companions to come together to strengthen our struggle here, which is very similar, the lawfare and the juridical process. We, as I say, we walk the walk of the stones, né? The caminho de pedra, and perhaps the Lula Livre people could help give a hand to to
That would be
strengthen it, because
wonderful.
the very experience that the exile was violated so strongly here in Latin American countries is very relevant, because we Latin Americans, many of us are alive or were alive during the dictatorship, because we took this human right to be exiled in an embassy of the country, who did respect, no matter how they view this as or this issue. So it's not only free expression, it's also the right to exile, the right to refuge, and many other rights, the right to see the family, to speak to the family. Many
Yeah.
rights are involved. So that's what we more or less spoke, and opened my invitation to Bruno to come together, which I'm sure he will. So thank you so much, Alex,
Oh,
Bruno again, and Mark, who is there patiently listening to us. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you so much. I
Lula
want to
livre,
really
Assange
thank you for your
livre.
activism. I really want to thank you for what you're doing for Brazil to stand up for your own causes, but also for Assange. And yes, any help to get the word out, and also tell other people about the people around the world that are feeling the same and know the same things. And I think, connecting us all is so important. I spoke to Ali May, 101234 on Twitter, who is the main Team Assange organizer in London. And there's other groups in London as well, but she did the London bus tour that's just gone around London there. And you know what she told me? She said that one of the Brazilian activists that's there with them in London, she didn't go to Brazil, but she sent two people and fundraised for them to go to Brazil and talk to Lula. And apparently that is why Lula did the article in The Guardian. I only heard that after we spoke last night, and I was hoping to get them on as well with you guys. That would have been really lovely, but maybe we can do that next time. But also, I want to thank massively Bruno Vital as well for twice, both of you having to make time for this this interview due to technical errors twice. And one thing I will say is that I really hope that every school has a teacher and an underlying activist that can pass on this beautiful message to the children. I really hope that there's more than one of you in Brazil. I really do. And so thank you so much, Bruno. Any last words from you?
We have brave teachers in Brazil.
Great.
So I'd like to thank you all to be here, to have this opportunity, and say that something that is important. We Lula had a committee in every country. Not I think in almost every country. So maybe there is a committee in London, a committee in, I don't know, in Paris, a committee. If you can meet these people, this is fine, because they can help you too. And the second thing is just thank you all for the opportunity. I'm going to help in what I can in this cause too, and try to make it spread much more, because here in Brazil, as we were talking to Mark, we don't see this in the TV or even in the internet. It's not a very famous discussion, because I have watched something about this in the television, for example, some news, but I don't remember exactly how they said Assange was. But I remember I've heard about this, or I've seen in the television. But now we don't see anything about this. We don't watch anything about this. So I want compromise with you to try to do these actions and also help spreading the campaign.
Thank you. That's amazing. So thank you so much, you two. I can't thank you enough. And this is Brazil, Natal online. Wonderful. So I'm glad that we got someone technically proficient and amazing. You're Mark Lubbers. You do so much for this movement. You are one of the most genuine people. You jumped on my message straight away and came to my rescue this morning, and I just can't, I actually don't know how I'm going to repay that. So Mark, thank you so much. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, Sandra. It has been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Yeah. Okay, so if Mark, if you're listening, I could give a little introduction to what the 3 videos that I gave to you. I probably haven't quite remembered the order. The first one, I believe, was Candles4Assange. Didn't do an action because they're really suffering from a lack of real apathy in that city. I think my friend is really exhausted with trying to get some action there. She does have a beautiful video with her standing in a prisoner outfit outside the Australian Parliament House, and they had a traditional Australian national anthem in the background with horns and brass, and it was just too sickly and normal soundtrack. So she asked me, can I do a violin track to it? And I was in the middle of my protest when this was all asked for. So in the middle of Newtown Festival with 20,000 people, I went upstairs to an office and someone recorded me with some electronic music, and I made up a minor twisted version of the Australian National Anthem, which is called Advance Australia Fair. And that is their message, that is the message that they are delivering to Scott Morrison, which they do silently with placards that they pass between the supporters. And it's a real beautiful video. And hopefully the soundtrack's a little bit rough because half untuned, and it was a crazy day yesterday for me, so much protesting, but yeah, hopefully the people will enjoy this new version of the Australian National Anthem underlying the Candles4Assange message. I don't know, Mark, if you want me to introduce all 3 so that we can just sign off after they're played, or do you just want me to introduce that first one?
Maybe we just do all 3 of them.
Okay. So the other 2 videos that I put in, unfortunately, I didn't get a video because my phone had run out of battery, of me accosting the MP or me accosting Amnesty International about Syria bogus reporting and their lack of support until 2 days before the trial hearing in February last year. I went to them and said, thank you for supporting Assange now, but, you guys have really got to pull your thumb out of your butt. You have not said enough. There's not been enough action from Amnesty in my mind, and I've been ringing up Amnesty for donkeys, trying to get them to listen and to do more. And when we set up our billboard in the busiest part of the junction of Newtown Festival, this is before the protest, we set it up somewhere, and then I looked across and there was an Amnesty International stall right opposite us. And I was like, oh my God, what are the chances? So I went over and had a good chat to them, and later on I did a film. So that's one of the films. They're all pretty short. And the last film, I think it's in this order, you'll find a piece of music that myself and Timothy Wagner, who's Palma Ricky on Twitter, my personal Twitter where I do the violin stuff and my own personal opinions, is Greenweaver Arch. And so we, a long time ago, came up with the Julian Assange song, quite a sort of sweet and friendly. It's Timothy, really. He's an amazing music singer, guitarist, and we performed it yesterday in Cuba Mall, and it was really, really fun. So I've got that 1-2 minute video there too. So Mark, if you like, you could press play on those 3 in order, and we'll sign out from Brazil Online and a little bit of Canberra and New Zealand. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Gratidão, Assange livre.
Assange livre. Do you need to fill in Mark, or shall I keep talking?
No, I'll start him now. I'll start him now.
Great. Oh, wonderful.
Even in the next hour. And what are the coincidences? I looked across from where I was, and look what's over here. Amnesty International. Isn't that brilliant? I think it's great that Amnesty is now supporting Assange, but I am a bit disappointed that it took until 2 days before the February hearing beginning for them to actually say something. What does that say about Amnesty? I mean, there's also the fact that the Syria war was directly caused by a fake chemical attack in Douma and white helmets staging the deaths of 40 people that had supposedly died through Assad bombing them to justify Trump bombing Syria. And what did Syria do? Syria backed up the BS from Syria. Amnesty really seem to be doing almost the opposite of what is required of them. And when I actually went and approached them, I tried not to be too rude because I was thankful that they are now supporting. But when I approached them about this, they told me, no, we have to really look after the little people, not the people with a big voice. Can you believe it? The people with a big voice like Assange, someone who has been reporters absolutely censored to death because we're all affected by big tech's censorship, but particularly when it criticises governments. So shame on Amnesty for stepping up 2 days before the trial just to get a few subs. I'm sorry if that's rude to say, but really gross. Now, back to the sign. Here we are, FreeAssangeNZ. FreeAssange now, and we're FreeAssangeNZ. And soon we will be heading to the protest location at Cuba Street and Left Bank at 12 noon. There are 32 or 33 cities now, I think, protesting around the world. Poland just joined and Sydney just joined, so I think it's about 13 countries now, 5 continents. Some of them are online, some of them are going to be solo, but there are going to be a lot of big ones because we got some coverage on Fox News, would you believe, with Tucker Carlson and Andrew Zigman from Action for Assange. We got coverage in the Evening Standard, and we've had lovely Courage Foundation retweeting our events and our event listings and even reposting them on their site. So that is very welcome. John Pilger and Randy Critico on their show yesterday also brought up the world events that are going on today. So signing out for now from New Zealand, Wellington, kicking off the world protest. We're just doing a little bit of signage here at Newtown Festival, and then we'll be going to our proper protest. But this is getting quite a few people to see. Free Assange New Zealand. Shame. And what are the chances of Amnesty being opposite us? I think it's hilarious. I went and told them about the white helmets and Duma and OPCW. I told them about the disgusting levels of support and censorship that we're all suffering from, and they really bottled out, I think, in their response. But I'm a pretty aggressive person when I'm angry, and I am angry. Yeah, shamnesty. Go!
They were chasing him yesterday, and he had to stow himself away. He had to take extreme caution, 'cause they were very strong. But they had to let him be in the Ecuadorian